Hey guys, today we'll be building this short portfolio website of a 3D designer using a Divhunt. Let's take a quick overview of the sections that we have on this page. So on top we have the very short navigation with logo on the left side and a bunch of links on the right that will serve as anchor points. So when you click on each of these links it will scroll you down to the certain sections of the page. Then we have the hero section. Below that we have the about section that will talk more about this designer and his background. Here we're gonna build a nice infinite loop effect with this text. Below that we have the showcase of portfolio work. And here we have the client testimonial. We're gonna build a slider for this using the Swiper slider plugin extension without using any code at all. And on the end we have the section that will talk more about how can potential clients get in touch with this person, and links, the clickable links where they can go to the LinkedIn, Twitter, or directly contact via mail. So let's go to the Divhunt and create a new project. Here you can either choose from many of these templates as the starting point, but since we're building the custom design, we're just gonna start from scratch. Give it some name. We're not gonna touch any of these settings now, so let's just open the builder directly. If you're opening the Divhunt for the very first time, I highly suggest you to watch this video tutorial. It's very nice to get familiar with the options and UI and everything. Alright, first thing first, let's set the styles that we're gonna reuse later on, such as colors, for example. So first thing is this black color right here. So let's go to the styles, choose colors, create new one, let's call it black. Then we need this light blue for the text. We're gonna need white. This is already white by default. We need this gray for the secondary backgrounds. And I believe that's about it for now. And we can start building. We're gonna define the headings and paragraphs and the text styles in the building process. So we're good to go for now. Let's select the body tag. And let's select the global state of this body to set some default styles that will be inherited through this whole website. So first thing, the background color should be this black one that we set. And for the text is mainly this light blue, so let's set that as the default one. So blue. And let's see, default size of the text, the body text, is 40, as you can see. So we can either set that to the body tag, or you can add the paragraph and edit that here. So the font is Inter in the Divhunt by default, so it's in this design as well, so you don't have to change anything. But if your design requires some different font, you can always go to the settings, go to the fonts, and you can add the font you want. So let's close this, go back to paragraph and select the global tag of this paragraph, and let's say 40 pixels size. As you can see, when you're editing the global styles, it's pink color, so it's indicating that you're actually editing the global styles. So 40 and 1.4 unitless. So in Figma, 140% is equal as 1.4, and you can select the unitless here. So what this does is taking the size, which is 40, and multiplying the line height by 1.4. So 40 multiplied 1.4, and that's the calculated line height. So we don't need this here, we can remove that, and let's start building the actual site. So first thing first, we need one section that will hold the navigation and this hero section right here. So let's start by creating the new section. Let's call it hero. By the way, these names right here is only for your personal organization. Nobody can see this in a published website code or anywhere else. It's only for your personal organization and better navigation through the project. So the hero, and let's create the container. As you can see, this design needs two containers. One, the default one, which is 1200, and the bigger one that is 1730 pixels. So let's call container here. Let's select the global container, and let's say here 1200, but since we're gonna set the padding on sides, we can leave it 20 pixels on sides, that's fine. We need to add those 20 plus 20 on the sides, which is 40. So let's do 1240 like this with 100% and 20 on the sides of the padding. That's all right. And now we need to add the navigation. Let's call this nav. And inside of that, we can call another container. And let's see, we need the logo on the left and links on the right. So let's call one span that will serve as a logo. John Smith. And we need one div that will hold these links. So let's call it links and call the link inside. And we need 3 links inside of that. So instead of copy pasting this, you can just right click on the link button and you can loop it 3 times. The good side about this is when you edit the styles of the one, the rest of them will inherit that style. So if I do 40 size here, as you can see, all 3 of them are inheriting the same size. So let's reset that and let's see what we need. It's 16 and 1.1 for the line height. So 16, and we just need to do 1.1 here, and let's change the text. So we need about, work, and contact. About, you can select the second one, work, or you can do it here, contact. That's fine. And now we need to push these links to the right side of this wrapper here. So let's do actually we don't need the container here because we already have it here. So let's change this container to the actual div. So how you can do that is select the container and just right click on the tag you want to swap this with, which is the regular div. And we can do the same thing for this span. Actually, we want this to be the link for the homepage. So let's just right click on this link button and now it's a link. So when you go to settings, you can select this page to go to the homepage. You can select the global links and you can remove this style like this, and we don't want any underlines, so just decoration none. That's fine. And let's see, logo should be a bit bigger. That's 21.1. So 21.1, set it to unitless. And now these links. All right, first let's rename this to wrap. Let's set it to flex, horizontal space between, so we put these links to the right side. And we need some padding between these links as well. It's 52 pixels. So we can also set display to flex to the links div that holding these three links, and set the column gap to 52. And we need a bit of padding on top and bottom for this whole nav, which is 40/40. So you can select this whole nav, and you can hold Option or Alt key on your keyboard, and when you click and drag one side, you can control both at the same time. So 40/40 like this. And we're done with the nav. The next thing we need is this heading 1 text here. So let's add the h1 tag. And let's see. It needs to be font weight of regular, 90 pixels size, and 1.1 line height. So let's select the global tag of this h1, and instead of bold it needs to be regular, needs to be 90 and 1.1 unitless. And we need 3 lines of text for this. So how we can achieve that is just add the spans. So add one span, we can change the text. And again, instead of copy pasting, just right click on that and loop it 3 times. But as you can see in the design, each this text line needs to take the whole width. So how we can achieve that, select the span and select the display to block, and that's it. And this h1, let's select the global one again, and let's give it the uppercase. So every h1 that we create in this site, it will inherit that global styling. Alright, so let's change text on these. That's fine, and we need a bit of padding between them, 41. So let's select the h1 tag that hold these 3 spans, set to flex, but the direction needs to be column, and row gap should be 41. That's alright, and we need a bit of padding, 100 and 147. So how we can achieve that? We can select this heading, and actually let's wrap it into one div like this, and let's call it contain. And now we can give the padding of 147 on top, and we can give it the 100 on the bottom. That's cool. And now in the background, as you can see, we have some repeating grid lines. So how we can achieve that? Now, instead of exporting this as SVG or an image, we're gonna draw just one square, the top and the right part. And we're gonna repeat it a bunch of times, because if you export this as one image, it's gonna get too much stretched on the bigger screens. And this way it will just loop it as many times as needed. So let's draw one line here, pick the right color, and we need another line for this. Let's match the color first. Let's select both, group them together. Let me show you like this. As you can see, just the top and right part. And now when you loop it, when you repeat it, it will go in infinite as many times as it needs to. So let's export only this one, but we need a right color. Let's export this one as SVG. We can call it lines. And let's set that one to the whole hero section. So scroll down to the background, set background type to the image, and let's upload lines. And as you can see, by default, repeat is set to repeat, so you don't have to change anything in this case. As you can see, we uploaded only this one, but if we set it to repeat, it's gonna be repeated, attachment to scroll, and clipping to border box. So we are done with that. The next thing we need to do is these shapes in the background. Let's select all of them. We can duplicate them, group them together, Command G in Figma, and let's export that as SVG as well. Let's call it shapes. And we can set it to the body because it's gonna be fixed to the body relative to it. So let's call an image tag, double click, and let's upload shapes, use it. And now it's pushed down. Let's bring it up, and now all you have to do is just set the position to absolute and position it on top and center, and that's it. It needs to be a bit away from top, around 130 pixels. Let's do something like 10, maybe 15%. That's great. And now the other problem we have is it's going over this text and everything. So how you can achieve that to go behind? You can just set or leave the Z index of this as it is, but go to the hero section, set it the position to relative, and set the Z index to some higher number, for example 10, to be sure it's much higher than the 0. And that's it. And one more thing, let's make sure that this image is not clickable at all on the live website. So scroll all the way down for the pointer events and set it to none. And now users can't click on this image. Alright, that's fine. And I think we are done with this section. We can proceed with the about. Let's select the body, create a new section. Let's call this one about. And let's see, first we need a bigger container, and then inside we need a smaller one. So let's call the container tag, and let's give it a class because we need to make it bigger and we need to use this on a bunch of places, here, here, here as well. So let's make sure that we can reuse it easily. Let's give it a class name of big, and you can set the max width to 70-30, the width to 100% to always stretch, and you can set this one to 20 as well, but now we need to add those back, so like this, and we are good to go. Now we need another div. Let's call this rep. And now as you can see, inside of this bigger one there's a regular one of 1200, so let's create another container, but we're not gonna give it any class. We need this size that we set. And to this rep we can do the background color to gray, and we need to set the border radius of 120 on top and 30 on the bottom sides. So wrap is selected, go down to the radius, unlock it, and 120, 120, 30, 30. That's fine. We need some padding on top and bottom, 60, 60. So hold Option key or Alt and drag to 60. As you can see, these shapes in the background, these ones, are still going over this section. So what we have to do, again, set this section to the relative. But now, instead of setting this to every single section that we create, the easier solution is to select this section, select its global tag, and now globally set it to relative and z-index of 10. And now every new section that you create is gonna be position relative and z-index of 10 by default. So let's remove this and continue working on the about section. So what we need is text with image between. So how are we gonna achieve this? We need the paragraph with 3 items inside. First is the span that will hold this text, then we need an image, and then we need another span for the rest of the text. So let's do that. Let's add the paragraph here. We already set the styling. As you can see, it's orange. That means that it's inheriting from its parent element. In this case, we set this to the global style of this paragraph. And inside of that, we need one span. Let's give it a text that we copied. Then, inside of that, we need an image. Let's export this image as the PNG. Double click, let's upload. And we need another span here for the rest of the text. Alright, now as you can see, this image is breaking this layout because it's taking the whole width. What we need to do is just select the image and set the display to inline, and that's it. Everything's fixed. And the other thing is this whole paragraph needs to be white instead of blue. So let's set this to the white. And image needs to be aligned with this text vertically. So select an image, and we can achieve this by giving the negative margin bottom to the image, and we need a bit of spacing here. So select this text and just give it a space here. And that's it. I think we're done with this section. Now we need to create the marquee effect, the infinite loop text. So let's do that. Let's close this section and let's create another one. Let's call it work. And let's see, we need the bigger container again. So container, let's give it a class that we already created of big. That's fine. And we need the text inside and border radius of 30 on every side. So we can just call the paragraph here because that's the only item we need inside. Or actually we need one more div first that will hold this. So let's call this wrap again, and let's give it the background of gray and border radius like this. And this text needs to say work, and it needs to be uppercase. This is the paragraph, but we only need uppercase on one particular place here, so we're setting it directly to the tag. We're not going to create any classes or anything because we don't have to reuse it, just on this one place. So go here and set this one to uppercase, and now we need to duplicate this bunch of times. So again, instead of copy pasting, just simple right click on this and you can do 25, for example. And now instead of taking this the whole width, we can set this one again to the display inline. Now let's create the effect. So first, actually, we need some padding here. So 10 pixels between these sections and around 35 in this section itself. So with wrap selected, holding Option or Alt, set to 35, and you can select the section above and set this one to 10 pixels, the margin bottom. And okay, now all you have to do to make this effect live is select the wrap tag and go to Settings, go to Browse Plugins, and you need to find the plugin named Marquee Effect and just install that one. Okay, you can go back to the builder. Now select the wrap, go to the settings, and here under the transform, just select the Marquee Effect. And now in order to work, you need to set the fixed height. It's how this library works. So just copy the height of this, which is 125. Go to the wrap and set that height. And now you can play with this option. Like, this is going too quickly, so you can set the duration to 15 seconds, for example. And we need a better padding. 100, you can set the gap to 100. And this is still a bit too fast, so let's set this one to 20, and I think that's it. We're also done with this section. You can also preview this site to see the live version of it. As you can see, everything works. Looking good. And we can proceed with another section, which is this one. Actually, it's gonna be under the same section, and it can be under the same container. So let's just create another div. Let's call this one grid, because it's gonna be grid with 2 columns. Let's export these images. We're not gonna optimize them for this video. You always want to do that before uploading to the actual website, but for this case, let's just speed up the process. And let's see, we need an image tag. All right. And we need to loop it 6 times, like this, as you can see. And let's upload these images that we just exported. Let me just export this one. Let's upload all of them. All right, let's see. The first one is this. Then the loop number 2, the item 2 in the loop needs to be this. Then this one and the globe. And the last one is this one. All right, now this has to be the display grid. So let's select the grid div and set it to display grid, and columns we need to add 1 more, and we need gaps between them of 20 on each side. So 20, 20. And we need some padding here as well, which is also 20 pixels. So you can select, I guess, this wrap, and you can set the margin bottom of 20. Right, looking great. We're done with that section as well. Now let's go to the client testimonial section. So create a new section. Let's call it Testimonials. And let's see, we need the regular container inside, so let's call that, and inside of that let's call another div. Let's call it wrap, just to know what it is. All right, now this needs to be blue background, and we need 40 Yep, we need 40 of padding on each side. So by holding shift on your keyboard, you can control all sides at the same time. So we need 40. And background of blue, and we need to give it the 30 border radius. So border radius of 30, that's fine. We didn't set any padding, so it's around 70. So let's select the section above and give it the bottom margin of 70. All right, now what we need inside is this client testimonial title. So you can just add a little span on top, and this needs to be the color of, we didn't add this color, so we only need it in one place. Let's just set it here directly like this, and it should say client testimonials. Let me check the styles. 21.4, so we can do 20. It's already 1.4 by default. It's inheriting the styles. And below this we need another div that is going to hold this whole slider here. So let's call this swiper, since we're using the swiper. So we need some structure in order for this to make it work. So we need swiper, then another div inside of that that's going to be called swiper wrap, and we need another div called swiper slide. And now inside of this slide we just need one paragraph with this text. So let's call paragraph. It needs to be the black, so let's select the swiper slide and set it here. So every single text that we add to the swiper slide is gonna be black. And let's change the text, and let's create these arrows for right and left. So let's export this as an SVG. So inside the swiper, let's call another div. Let's call it just arrows, I guess. And inside of that we need the image, and let's upload the arrow. Let's use that one, and we need one more arrow, so duplicate, and this needs to be pointed to the right. So how you can achieve this is go to the transform and select the scale and just give the horizontal scale of -1, and it will just flip. And these arrows should actually be in one more div because it needs to be displayed flex like this. Let's set this one to the flex. That's fine. Center. It needs to have the gap of 15. And we need to push both of these arrows to the right. That's why we created this div. One more. So select the arrows, flex, and all the way to the right. And we need 40 pixels. So you can do the margin top of 40, for example, and that will do the work. All right, now obviously this isn't working because we need to set a few more things. So you need to give the classes to these arrows, so let's do that. Let's call the previous one prev, and this one let's call it next. And now to make it work, let's go to the swiper, go to the settings, browse plugins, and you want to install the swiper plugin. Alright, let's go back to the builder, select the swiper div, go to the settings, under transform, select swiper. And now you'll see the bunch of options here. You can set the slides per view, space between and everything, but for this one we need only one. So here under the navigation you want to give the classes that we just created. So for the next we called it next, and for the previous we call it preview. Now why they're hidden is because we only have this one card, so there's nothing to slide. So what we need to do is go to the swiper wrap, and under the swiper slide let's loop it 3 times for now. As you can see, it's working now. So let me change the text for the loop number 2, for example. This is awesome. And now when you go here you can see that this text is changed, and you can also do for the third one. So swiper slider without the code. Oops. So we actually changed the loop number 1, I'm sorry. We need to select the third one and say swiper without code. Okay, now it's working. You can play with a bunch of these options. So let's select the swiper. We set the transform to this one. So let's say that you want it to be the loop. Now you can go in infinite loops here. As you can see, you can also set slides per view to be 2 or more, but for this we need only 1. You can set the keyboard control, so you can control it with your keyboard on the left and right arrows. You can enable bullets, for example. You can make it clickable, so now you can change with clicks on these. You can set the autoplay, for example. I'll set 1 second. Obviously you need more, but I'm just showing you the effect. You can play with these options, but we're gonna leave it as it is for now. Also, you should always check the live site to see is everything working correctly here as well. As you can see, everything works. That's it. We achieved this swiper slider in like 2 minutes. Alright, let's proceed. This is the last section. We need 100 pixels of margin, so select the testimonial and you can set the margin bottom to 100. And let's create one more section. We can call this contact. And let's see, we need 1 paragraph here, but it's a bit bigger. So let's do that. Let's do the paragraph. So actually we need to add the container first. We need the regular one, so let's just move the paragraph inside the container, and it needs to say this, and it has to be 59 and 1. So only on one place 59, and it needs to have the line height of 1 unitless, like this. All right. And it's breaking into another row. I'm not really sure why. It's probably not exactly the same. Let's try to make this. Oh, it's 58 here. All right, so you can control this on your keyboard, or with your mouse wheel to go by 1, or if you're holding shift, you're jumping by 10. Alright, it's now exactly the same as in design, and we need 40 margin bottom. And we need this clickable links, so let's create another div. Let's call it links wrap. Let's create another div inside, and let's call this link. And the link needs to have the two text, needs to have 22 padding bottom and up, and actually on all sides. So again, hold shift and set this to 22. Background of gray and border radius of 10, like that. And we need text inside, so just 2 spans, I would say. Span 1 and span 2, or instead of this you can simply loop this, whatever works better for you. Let's leave it this way, but as you can see, all this text needs to be aligned perfectly on this side. So how we can achieve that is set the link to the display of grid, and we need 2 columns like this. And we can now change the text. And let's duplicate this bunch of times, so loop it 3 times. And we need this to have some gap. So you can set the margin bottom to 10, is the easiest solution, like this. And this is Twitter. That's the same. And email. Like this. Alright, so now this needs to be a link. So instead of wrapping everything inside of a link, you can just right click on the link, and now that's basically it. You can set this to some external links, for example, the URL. For the email, you can set it to be an email and just select the email here, and when the user click on this, it will open the pop-up for email contact. You can select to open in a new tab or not, and that's pretty much it. We just need the footer, so let's create the footer. We need container inside, and then we just need one span that will say John Smith, and it needs to be uppercase, and it needs to be very large. Like this. And that should be it. We just need to link these. So for the about, this is about section. How you can do that is select the whole section, go to the settings and set the ID to about. Now we need work. Set this one to work. And we need contact to say contact. And now all you have to do is select the link, go to the settings, and now under the link settings, select the anchor and say, just write the ID that you gave to the section. So for work, we need to be work. and for the contact it needs to be contact. And let's test this on the live site. So when I click about, it will scroll me down to the about section, work, and contact. So everything works. These are the links, but we didn't set any on the click. And that's it. We're done with this build. The only thing left to do is responsiveness, but we'll leave that for another video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.